don't know if my parents sat down one day and said, let's have 5 children so our kids never have to end up in a tie. Because even when your opinion was not the one that carried, you knew that at least 3 of the 5 people were aligned. But you see, so here's what I kept thinking through all of it. What if we had actually known what she wanted? And here's the thing, I had the chance to ask. I remember I was in her room one day, we were watching TV, and it was just the 2 of us. Nothing heavy about the moment. And I just asked her, half joking, something like, "So, how would you like to be buried?" She didn't even look away from the TV, and she just said, I want to ask you something before we get started today. Think about the person you love most in this world. Now ask yourself, do you actually know what they would want? Not what you assume, not what you hope, but what they've actually told you. Because if you hesitated, if something in you got quiet, then you're not alone and you're exactly in the right place. Welcome back to Shifted on Purpose. I'm Bola, and I'm so glad you're back for episode 2. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You don't need to go back to listen to episode 1 first. This conversation stands on its own, but whenever you're ready, go back to episode 1 and listen. I think you're going to want to hear it. Last week, I told you what nobody warned me about. That grief doesn't arrive alone, that silence isn't protection, it's just delay, and that love isn't enough without conversations to back it up. So today, I want to go a little deeper into that, because what I've come to understand since losing my parents is that grief doesn't just affect the person who has lost someone, it moves through everyone around them. And most of us, on every side of that, were never taught what to do with it. You see, when my mom passed, the 5 of us, my siblings and I, were suddenly standing in the middle of something none of us had ever navigated before. And the very first thing we had to figure out wasn't the grief. It was, what do we do first? Not how do we feel, what do we actually do? Like right now, today. Do we call a funeral home? If so, which one? How do we even choose that? Do we cremate or do we go with the traditional funeral? What did she want? Did she ever say? Did anyone ask? Do we go with the most cost-effective option because that's the practical reality? Or do we do what we think she would have wanted? And how do you know what someone would have wanted if you didn't really ask? What does a befitting funeral even mean? How do you honor someone's life in a way that it feels right when you're still making decisions out of shock? We explored options. We talked. We disagreed. And pretty early on, we decided how we were going to make decisions. We voted. Majority carried the vote every time. I don't know if my parents sat down one day and said, let's have 5 children so our kids never have to end up in a tie. But I will tell you this, having an odd number of siblings in that very moment, best accidental planning they ever did. Because even when your opinion was not the one that carried, you knew that at least 3 of the 5 people were aligned. Nobody was making the call alone. Nobody had to wonder if they got it wrong by themselves. And the values our parents raised us with showed up in every single vote that we took. Even when we disagreed on the details, we were all moving from the same foundation that held us together when nothing else could. But you see, so here's what I kept thinking through all of it. What if we had actually known what she wanted? And here's the thing, I had the chance to ask. I remember I was in her room one day, we were watching TV, and it was just the 2 of us. Nothing heavy about the moment. And I just asked her, half joking, something like, "So, how would you like to be buried?" She didn't even look away from the TV, and she just said, "Nkoto bawini keshi makukutilo." Translation, whatever you guys do is fine, I'll be gone anyway. And that was it. Conversation over. We both laughed it off because honestly, that was so her. But sitting in the middle of a funeral home, weeks later, trying to answer the exact same question is a moment I couldn't forget. I kept going back to that moment because the truth is, I let it go. Not because I didn't care, not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't have the right mindset to keep it going either. I wasn't ready for where that conversation needed to go. And so we both just moved on. And that's what most of us do. We get close and then we move on. And then nobody comes back to it. And then 100 days later, my dad was gone too. We kept things simple. And I'll just say this, when you're navigating a second loss before the first one has even settled, simple sometimes is the most grace filled decision you can do for yourself and your family. Now, here's what I've come to understand since all of this: grief just doesn't affect the person who's lost someone, it moves through everyone around them. And for most people, on every side of that, have no idea what to do with it. I want to talk to four types of people right now, and I want you to try to figure out which one is you. Maybe you're the one holding everyone together. You're the one making the phone calls, handling the logistics, checking on everyone else, keeping things from falling apart. And somewhere in the middle of all of that is your own grief, just sitting in a corner, waiting for you to have a quiet moment that never seems to come. Nobody asks how you're doing because you look like you have it all handled. Can I say something to you directly? You can put it down for a moment. You're allowed to grieve too. You're not just the strong one. You're also someone who's just lost someone. And if you give yourself space to feel it, it just doesn't go away. It just builds. And it eventually comes out in ways that affects the people around you who genuinely want to show up for you. You're not a burden to have feelings. You're a human being who's hurting too. And so we're going to talk about how to process all of that without burning yourself or the people who love you out. A grief coach is going to be joining us in a future episode, and she is going to speak to this in a way I think is going to change how a lot of people think about what grief actually does to your body and the relationships around us. Or maybe you're that friend, the coworker, the loved one, the one who heard the news and immediately wanted to do something, but you didn't know what to say. So you picked up the phone and put it back down. And then a week went by, and then it was 2 weeks and 3 weeks. And now it just feels too late, too awkward. And so you just haven't reached out at all. Here's what I want you to hear. Sometimes showing up doesn't involve words at all. It just requires action. I have a family friend, an event planner, who called me one day while we were in the middle of planning for the funeral. She didn't call to say she was sorry. She didn't call to check in. She called and said, "What actions do you have left to do?" And then she opened up her contacts and just started giving me names to vendors, people who could help out with the different things we needed to get handled. Did we end up using all the vendors? Maybe not. But at least we had a starting point. And in the middle of our grief, a starting point is everything. It saved us time. It saved us energy. It saved us from having to reach out to people from scratch. That's what showing up looks like. Not the perfect words, not the right thing to say, just maybe, what do you have left to do? I'll take something off your plate. That's it. That's the whole thing. Or maybe you are the one who showed up. You went to the service, you sat in the room, but you felt completely lost the whole time. Like everyone else knew what to do, and you were just there trying to not make anything worse. I want to say something to you. Thank you for being there. Seriously. Because showing up, even when you feel lost, even when you don't have the words, even when you just sat quietly to someone who's hurting, that matters more than you know. And your presence means everything. And then there is the one who didn't show up at all. Not because they didn't care, but because grief makes people uncomfortable, because they didn't know what to do with their own feelings. because life got busy and they told themselves, you would understand. If that's you and you genuinely care, it's not too late. Reach out, even now, even though it's been weeks, months, years. A simple, I've been thinking about you goes so much farther than the silence ever will. And sometimes just being quiet together is enough. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to show up. Our grief coach is going to help us all understand this so much more deeply. What grieving people actually need, how to show up well, how to take care of your own emotions so you can actually be present for someone else. That episode is coming and I cannot wait. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Now, let me bring it back to the other side of this, because everything I just described, the decisions we couldn't agree on, navigating the second loss, keeping things simple, all of it was made harder by one thing. We didn't know what they actually wanted, not because we didn't love them, but because we never asked and they never told us. And we all just assumed we would have more time. Most people don't even know what questions to ask, not because they don't care, but because nobody ever gave them a starting point. They don't know what they don't know. And that gap between what we know and what we should know is exactly what I want to close. And so here's what I will say to you directly right now. We have to find a little more courage, not the big dramatic kind, not the sit down family meeting kind, just the quiet everyday courage to not let that moment slip by, not to change the subject when things get uncomfortable, not to keep telling yourself there's more time, because I know what it's like to almost have that conversation and let it go. I know what it's like to sit in the aftermath of that. I don't want that for you, and I don't want that for your family. So next week, I am bringing you something I wish someone had handed me before I ever needed it. It's called the Future Readiness Check, and it's something I personally put together as a gift to you. It's completely free, and it will give you a clear, honest picture of exactly where you stand, not to stress you out and not to make you feel like you're behind, but to show you specifically what your family would be navigating if something unexpected happened to you today and what you can do right now to change that. I tested these questions on some of my most trusted circles, people I know personally, and even they were surprised. And honestly, the thing that surprised them the most wasn't what they didn't have. It was the things they didn't even think to check. I'm not going to give you a preview today because I want you to come back into that episode fresh. So make sure you have it in your hands before you listen. Here's how to get it. Go to shiftedonpurpose.com, scroll to the subscribe section, check that little box, provide your name and email address, and hit subscribe. And you will get that future readiness check within minutes. And if you don't get it for whatever reason, please check your spam, check your junk mail, check your promotions folder, just in case it ends up in there. Oh, and I have to tell you something. I just finished recording an episode with someone whose story I have not been able to stop thinking about since we hit stop on the recording. She's my first guest on Shifted on Purpose, and I could not have asked for a better one to kick things off. Her journey through loss is so honest and so inspiring that I genuinely cannot wait for you to hear it. That's episode 4, and it's coming, but you'll only know when it drops if you're subscribed. So hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple, all the different platforms. Please hit subscribe and follow this show. It also lets me know you're here and that these conversations matter to you. And it also makes sure that new episodes find you the moment they drop. And honestly, it motivates me to keep showing up and to bring you conversations that are real, informed, and worth your time. So please, please subscribe on every platform. Before I close, I want to hear from you. Which of these 4 people were you? Are you the one who's holding everyone together? The friend who went quiet? The one who showed up and felt lost? Or the one that didn't come at all? Write to the show. Tell me your story. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. The link is in the show notes. Every week, I leave you with a shifted on purpose move of the week. And so this week, I want you to think of someone in your life that you care about, someone who's grieving right now, or someone who's recently lost someone. And then ask yourself honestly, did I show up the way I wanted to? Not to judge yourself, just to notice, because awareness is always where the shift begins. And next week, we're turning that awareness into action. If this episode hits somewhere real for you, please share it. Share with the friend who has the heart to help, but just doesn't know where to start. Tell them. Just ask what's left to do. Do that thing anyway. Share with that family member who's carrying everyone else and tell them it's okay to put it down for a moment. Or share with that one who didn't show up, who's still thinking about it, and tell them it's not too late. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, please don't ignore that feeling. A text, a call, a hey, I've been thinking about you. That's enough. That's the shift. So take care of yourself, and I will see you next week because the shift starts now.